In a world that values service, today's guest has done more for other people through the outdoors than anyone else I've ever met. I mean that unequivocally. This is a man who has given so much of himself to others and has been an incredible inspiration to me as long as I've known him, which at this point is closing in on 20 years. I'm grateful that he's in my life. I'm blessed to call him a friend. I'm excited to have him on today's podcast. I'm Brandon Butler.
I'm Nathan Shags McLeod.
And I'm Tron Peterson with Peterson Outdoors Ministries.
And welcome to the Drifting Outdoors podcast.
Well, it's January 20th, 2025, a landmark day in the history of our nation. Just one of the biggest changes we'll ever experience as the Bears have hired Ben Johnson.
Well, we're recording it on January 20th. It's not going to come out until next week. But yes, it is a historic day, Brandon. You are correct.
That's right. There was something else that happened today. What else happened today? We got a new president.
Yes, we did.
So it's quite the day. I mean, sorry, Donald Trump. I mean, I'm glad you're back, but Ben Johnson to the Bears. I mean, go ahead and etch that fifth face on Mount Rushmore. Here we go, baby.
And Ohio State and Notre Dame's playing tonight too. So,
Tron, who do you got? Who do you want?
Ohio State.
What? You're going
Ohio
against
State.
Jesus's team? Like, of anybody. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought you'd have joined the dark side.
We'll see who wins.
I wish there was.
You don't even want to fish in a boat with Shags because of this. Like, lightning strikes. Like, you can't go against Jesus's team, man.
Oh, your team will be number one in the country and go completely undefeated, and this will be your year. And then they'll run into Ohio State and not even make it to the championship because of all the smack talked about how much they had Notre Dame. So
man.
I don't wish any ill will on any of the team or the players. I just wish there was a way both teams could lose. That is all.
That's a good way to put it. But go Irish. Go Irish all the way. Predictions.
Good excuse to not watch it. I'm not going to watch it. I'm still very butthurt about Oregon getting smoked out of the college playoff. So
man, I cannot wait to talk about my trip to Oregon. But before we do, I want a prediction. I want predictions all the way around. Like, winner, just winner. We don't have to do a score.
I'm not doing one. I'm boycotting the national.
Look at you, man. You are coming around to the fact that you shouldn't talk bad about Jesus's team. Like, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all.
It just shows you how much I hate Ohio State too. I hate them both equally.
Oh man, I think Ohio State gets it done. As much as I don't want them to.
Notre Dame's overrated, so they're going to get smoked. But I just don't want
every commentator since they lost that game to Northern Illinois, and here they are in the national championship.
Yeah, good for them.
All right,
congratulations.
Are we doing stories tonight?
You know, I've been listening and just trying to figure out this whole video podcast thing and stuff, and they really talk about the importance of getting into your guests' content and stuff like that. So I didn't really do any stories. I was just going to ask you about your Oregon trip because that looked awesome, and you got to catch your first Pacific Northwest steelhead.
It was awesome. It was a great
another
trip.
Oregon loss too. That's always fun.
That made it more awesome. But the people in Oregon were so nice, man. Like, to travel to another stadium, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire trip. It was quick. We took off on Thursday out of Chicago on a 9:00 flight. Didn't even get to Portland until about 11, and then drove down to Eugene and got an Airbnb. Man, our Airbnb was about 20 yards from the Prefontaine Memorial where he died. So we all walked down there and got a picture of the pre-memorial, which that's another death that doesn't make sense because you'd have thought that there's no way you could get a car going fast enough on that little road up on the side of the mountain. But anyways, saw the Prefontaine Memorial right there by our house. We were up looking over kind of Eugene on this bluff. So you had the stadium, the football stadium. It was just a beautiful view. Got up pretty early for having not gotten in till 1 and drove down to the Siletz, Siletz, not sure how you pronounce it, Siletz River. Man, it was so beautiful. Like we passed 5 or 6 waterfalls that day that easily would have been the best waterfall in Missouri.
Oh
And
yeah.
like nobody even like turned their head. I'm all the rest of us are like, "Oh my gosh," and but it was just a beautiful, beautiful river. We floated bobbers, so I was happy. We had, just an egg pattern and then some skein. It took a while to get the first one. I got one on and got it like to the boat and it came off. And then I caught one in our boat. After that, my friend Joe, he was kind of the person that took me out there. I thought maybe I should just give myself a timeout, which I enjoy anyways. So I just sat in the boat and kind of watched him fish for a while and talked to our guide. DM's the guy's name. We'll have him on as a guest here in the near future. I feel like we've got our first guide to add to our roster, but this will be the first one in Oregon. So, we've got our Chris Nelsons and Blake Harris's and Chuck Grease and all of our good buddies that are guides. So I'm pretty excited to have one for us out there that you need to connect with and fish with. I talked you up a lot to him, and I think it'd be really cool. So great guy, great scenery. The game was early. It was a 12 o'clock game Pacific time. So we we kept the steelhead. I released mine. I got mine in, let it go, and everybody just started like side eyeing me. The guides are like, "Who brought this guy?" You know?
Yeah, you don't do that back home. No way.
No, like no, they're like, "What did you just do?" I was like, "I put it back." And they're like, I was channeling my inner Kevin Morlock, and they were like, "You can keep it if you want to." And so we kept 3 after that. The guides kept 1, we kept 2, and I got up early before the game and I grilled steelhead fillet. I kind of marinated them overnight with just lemon pepper, like actually squeezed some fresh lemon on them, put pepper and salt and olive oil, cured them overnight, grilled them in the morning, and then had some fried eggs to go with it. So we started the day right. The game was amazing. The stadium was super cool. The Oregon campus was super cool. The people were the best part though. They were all like really nice. Like you got a lot of like we're so glad you're here type of people in Oregon. So that
Yeah,
that
why do
was
you act so shocked that Oregon people are nice?
I've been to Portland before.
Well,
So,
can't count that.
well, no, I mean I like and the other thing I almost texted you, man, like you're a big dude anywhere, but there's a lot of big people in Oregon. Like I don't know what like the DNA lineage is there, but you're definitely more of a standout here in the Midwest than you would be back in your home territory. Like Oregon's just got big people.
Everything's big
Um,
out there.
yeah, they're just big people. But the internet sucked in the stadium. So I said something to a guy. I'm like, I thought you guys were all supposed to be a bunch of techies. And he's like, no way, man. That's California and Seattle. Like, we're Oregon. I was like, all right, I got you. So and we just kind of hung out. We had 2 really good dinners. Yeah, man, just a great time. We had to leave early to get to a 9 o'clock flight. Eugene was about 2 hours from Portland, so we had a 9 o'clock flight. So anyways, got out of there early on Sunday and back home. So it was it
Yeah,
was it was great.
you called and asked me, like, "Where's a great place to go eat?" I was like, "Dude, I haven't been in Eugene since I was, like, 19 years old." I was like,
Yeah.
Google's a better help than I'll ever be."
So
What did the
after the Oregon game, we went and we all wanted to like walk through campus and see it, which was really nice. And we just ended up at a small like old house, kind of turned into a bar, all wood inside. It was perfect. And they're all drinking, and I 2 of these guys one I'd never met before, one I'd never really hung out before. Um, and they found out that I don't drink anymore, and they're like, "Is it okay if we go to a bar?" And I'm like, "Of course, man. Like, I want to watch the game." So I got a Sierra Nevada NA beer, and it was just like a regular Sierra Nevada. So like everybody's taking a sip of it, and they're like, "Oh, this is good." But then they got kind of going on the rounds, and it took to like the 4th one where like every time they bought a round, they brought me one, and I was like, "Dudes, it doesn't like work that way. Like, I'll get another one when I get thirsty. Like, thank you, but like I wouldn't drink 4 Diet Cokes in a row, like just not getting the effect you are. So, but I found another NA beer that I thought was really good, which was the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale.
Tron, have you ever made it out to the Pacific Northwest? Have you ever been out to Oregon?
I've never been out to Oregon or Washington State. I'd like to get out there sometime and do some hunting or maybe some elk hunting, but or maybe some steelhead fishing if Brandon will take me next time.
Shags is the guy to take you to Oregon, man. And then you got to hook up with Uncle Steve.
Yeah, he'll
He's the
get you
one that
on some
really knows
deer.
what's going on. But dude, we saw so many elk. And in that area between Eugene and that Siletz River, I bet we saw 150 elk that morning. A lot of them were clearly on private property, like down in kind of the bottom fields and ranches and stuff. But one of the guides that we fished with, we had 2 guides. Um, he's a big elk hunter, gets his elk every year, and said, no, it's over the counter for residents and pretty easy for a non-resident to get a tag in that area too. He said I was talking to him about Claskeneye and Astoria and that area. And he said, like, up there, there's the 3-point rule or some
Yeah.
kind of rule in place that they don't have down there. So I think that part, like your part of the state, the northwest corner of the state, maybe they're managing more for, bigger bulls, whereas that part of the state might be the meat hunters area. I don't know, but it seemed that way.
Yeah, that's what makes Oregon so interesting and cool too, is if you enjoy the outdoors, it's got a little bit for you because you got
Mhm.
all the 4 different regions that are like completely different environments and different species, and it's got a little bit of everything. And just being the fisherman that I am, it's just waterways everywhere. Because even when we took my fiance Savannah out the first time, like you were talking about, like just waterfalls on the side of the road, that would be like state parks here in Missouri are just like rain runoff next to the highway that no one really pays attention to. And I mean, you saw Beaver Falls that I grew up next to. That's a pretty epic waterfall in itself. It's just a really beautiful state, pretty incredible.
Very, very much so. But we beat them at basketball.
Yes, again, another loss by the Oregon Ducks. I'm
They're
just
not
giving up.
bad though, man. I mean, they're a
They
good
were top
team.
10.
Yeah, no, they were going into it. I think they were 14 and we were 17.
Well, when I
And
say top 10, they started the season top 10, and
oh,
yeah,
okay.
we've been dropping.
We went up to 11 today. We as in Purdue, everybody. Purdue went up to 11 and I think Oregon dropped to 17, but they've got a
That's a
couple
nice.
really good. They got a couple NBA players though.
Well, that's what's cool about college basketball too. It all just comes down to the tournament. Like you just
Yep.
get into the tournament, you never know what's going to happen. Get hot at the right time. But before we get in, Tron, we're going to start talking about your ministry and your mission and the amazing work that you do. But we do need to remind everyone February 28th, Driftwood Outdoors will be at Big Rock Candy Mountain celebrating opening day of trout season. We'll be recording a podcast at the bar there on the campground. And with the state park and some of the issues it's had with that historic flood in November, they say they're going to be open for opening day, but we don't know about some of the lodging. That's why we got Big Rock Candy Mountain. If you're looking for a place to stay, you can always count on Roger and everyone there. Get yourself a cabin. They got RV spots, they got tents, they got teepees, they got a little bit of everything. And I look forward to bringing in another year of Missouri trout season up there at Big Rock Candy Mountain. It's always a good time. Setting up
I
some.
can I can attest to how much I love Big Rock Candy Mountain because on this trip, like I was selling these guys on coming down to fish with us in the Ozarks. They go to Montana and fish Yellowstone and Oregon, but like me growing up in Missouri, I mean growing up in the Midwest, I didn't realize like how great the trout fishing was in Missouri. And I'm explaining to these guys, what some of the rivers are like, what the trout parks are like, how much fun it would be to bring a whole family. And I was like, and there's this great place to stay, like right by where we're fishing. It's called Big Rock Candy Mountain. The food's incredible. The owners are great. Like you guys are gonna love it. We'll get a cabin. So congratulations, you're now part of the friend group, and you get to fish with Joe and Eric, um, Rick. And there'd probably be a fourth, so we can round it out to six in the rafts.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So we hope you all join us there at Big Rock Candy Mountain February 28th. And then, of course, March 1st will be fishing down at the park.
Tron, been waiting to get you on the podcast for a long time, man. I know you got a lot of inspirational stories to share. I don't really even know where to begin, but why don't you just kind of tell us how Peterson Outdoor Ministries came to be, how this isn't a job. I mean, this is your life's calling. It's amazing what you've done for other people. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
just start from the top, man.
Well, it's a long story that I'll try to put bits and pieces of it in this. And I really hope, um, and I really thought about this before I started getting on this podcast today, is I just want to represent uh, Christ and represent our veterans and what we do at our ministry. It's life changing. I think I met you in 2006 at the POMA conference, and the outdoor media and just the outdoor community has played a big role in helping this ministry get off the ground back in those early days. But I just had a passion deep within my heart for America's veterans and first responders and those with disabilities, and wanted to do something. I was one of those individuals that I was seeing guys coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan injured. A lot of these guys were sportsmen. They loved hunting, they loved fishing, but they were missing. Many of them were missing arms and legs, and I wondered how in the world they would be able to get back outdoors. Back in the early years, even as early as 2006, I teamed up with Be Adaptive Equipment, which was a company that produced all kinds of adaptive equipment, shooting equipment. It didn't matter if you were quadriplegic, if you were blind, if you had limited mobility. Be Adaptive had everything that we needed in those early years to be able to provide hunts to a lot of these veterans that were coming back. They were stationed in these Warrior Transition Unit hospitals, Walter Reed, Bethesda, Brooke Army Medical Center down in San Antonio, and all over the place. And I had talked to military chaplains that were going through some of these hospitals and talking to the individuals and just saying, if you got anybody that you know of that could use the encouragement, use time back in the outdoors, we've got the equipment, we've got a place that we can take them. And I just wanted to give back. And so started just doing that one person at a time, one individual. Word caught on, and through the outdoor media and others, I started helping with Tennessee Kids Hunting for a Cure, the turkey hunts and things they did there. Missouri Disabled Sportsman events, anything I could do to be around those with disabilities so I could learn how to better, take them outdoors and use the equipment and stuff like that. And so I just started growing from there. 2009 was probably our biggest event where we started taking multiple veterans from all over the United States. The ministry started growing. And by that time, I think we had about 50 or so volunteers. And we were just able to meet some of America's greatest heroes over the years. It's hard to believe we're going on 20 years next year. Lots happened over the years, and I've met a lot of incredible people.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So did you go to school to like seminary school? I went to a private Lutheran college, and I met a lot of people that were going to college in just for the purpose of spreading the good word. Was this something that was always in your blood, or did you go to
No,
school for it?
no, I didn't go to school for it. I just I've got 2 degrees in criminal justice and was going that route. But in college, I joined a campus ministry group and started doing mission work overseas with them. Started doing prison ministry at the old prison at Jefferson City, um, doing homeless ministry and things like that. And so always, had that, that desire or whatever, but I didn't know exactly what to do with it. I felt like God was calling me to do something greater with my life. I know me and my identical twin brother, whenever we were at Missouri Southern State University, we became presidents of that Christian campus ministry group our senior year. Was responsible for a lot of the disabled accessibility at Missouri Southern State University. My twin brother Troy was on the student senate, and we would watch kids in wheelchairs trying to get up the snowy sidewalks, and the doors would slam on them and stuff like that. And I was like, I cannot believe that this campus doesn't have accessibility for these guys. A lot of times, my brother and I were pushing these guys in their wheelchairs up the snowy sidewalks, and we went and talked to the heads of the college, and they're able to put accessibility in all the buildings and make it all wheelchair accessible. And so, all my life, I've just had a heart for those with disabilities. I've had a heart for the military and a heart for our first responders. And but as far as ministry, God's done way too much in my life not to give him the credit for everything good that's happened.
Yeah, Shags, you and I have talked kind of as friends about religion and faith over time and kind of our own evolutions and stuff. And some of the stories that we've shared personally with each other are some of the people that have kind of driven us away from it. Well, I can tell you that ever since I met Tron, he's been like a light drawing me to it. Like I mean that in all sincerity, like
Appreciate that.
Tron's like the anti flashy preacher. Like this guy has been walking this path, you know, in the way that makes you want to like walk right next to him. And um, sometimes it takes a while. I know you've been working on me for a long time.
Yeah.
But I just like when it comes to being religious outwardly, like into the public, Trons is attractive to me as anyone has ever been because of his demeanor, the way he lives his life, and then the way he actually shows his faith through the service to others, and that's what I've always found so admirable.
I appreciate that. My dad was always the example to me and my brothers, and I always wanted to be like my dad, still do. He's 85 years old and has always been a solid rock for our family. Been married 62 years. Uh, just I saw the way he lived his life through trial and tough times, and I wanted to emulate that in my own life. And my dad's about as humble of a farmer that you'll ever meet. Farmed most all of his life, and has taken care of my disabled mother probably the last 40 years, and seen him give up a lot of his dreams and stuff just to take care of her. And so that probably plays a huge role in my life. It's just my parents.
Mhm. Tron actually went to the cabin with his twin brother
Yes, I
one
did.
time, and I want to talk a little bit about how I view. And to be clear, like I haven't talked to Tron about any of this stuff, like offline yet or anything, but kind of like where I've settled with the cabin. I'm kind of excited to tell you, Tron, like how I'm thinking about it these days. But first, you tell the story a little bit about how you guys enjoyed it because it was a pretty special place.
Well, that was an incredible place. Was that called Sinking Creek that it was by, or?
Hmm.
Uh,
Right on.
yeah, that cabin was unbelievable. And once you cross that little stream into your driveway and up there, you felt like you was in the middle of nowhere, in a good way. And it was a time in my life, Brandon. I don't know how much I shared with you, but I needed it. I'd been married 22 years, and my marriage dissolved at 22 years, and I just needed a break. I needed a place to be able to go and think. And my twin brother Troy, as you said, went with me, and we were able to go fishing. We was able to check out Echo Bluff State Park and all that area, and just kind of decompress. And so that cabin played a pivotal role in just the peace that I needed at that moment in my life, and really appreciated the opportunity to stay there.
It means so much to me to hear those good stories with kind of the way that it ended and knowing that people came there and enjoyed it and appreciated it and found the serenity that I was seeking, for a place that was built to be serene though. Like there were some aspects to it now looking back that weren't great. My marriage also ended. and was in a state of deterioration for a long time. And that cabin, it gave me an escape from that. It wasn't a place I spent a ton of time with my family.
Mhm.
I wanted to, like, just we won't get into like why it didn't happen, but it wasn't a regular thing. It was more me and my buddies, and usually when we were down there, we were drinking and everybody was escaping something. I'm glad you were finding peace, but
Yeah.
and I poured myself into it so much that it kept me away from my kids. And at the time I was, like I was kind of the mindset that I had kind of lost a lot of that battle for my kids' hearts and minds. And in that regard, like it became a place to just be, like just
Mhm.
to be, and I was there with friends or I was there alone. And like I said, if you peeked in the liquor cabinet, like we had good times down there, and then I was always happy to show it off. And I just don't know if everything that I thought I was putting into it was as pure as I thought. And when it was burned down, and when I knew right away like who did it, like I thought the rage and anger was coming at any minute. Like I thought the historic way that I would have dealt with something would bubble up. Like it was alarming to me almost that it wasn't there. Like, hey, like somebody put the batteries back in me. Like, what's going on here? Like, why am I not like full of rage and anger? And it was almost like, and then that set off another situation that ultimately did lead to, the divorce that was, coming, I guess you would say. And so I guess I hit rock bottom. And now, like I told Shags recently and other people, I've come to like accept the fact that for so long I was fixated on the darkness. Like I couldn't make changes, I couldn't do anything because I was afraid things would happen, like the typical things that happen when you go through a divorce, loss of money, loss of your home, loss of your children, like all of those things. And I was so afraid of those things happening that I wasn't able to like fixate on how good life could become later on. Like I couldn't see the light through the darkness. And I was so afraid of going into the darkness that I was paralyzed for a long time. And then my hand was somewhat forced. So I was forced into the darkness. And it took a long time to get out of it, but once you come out of it, man, the light is just a miracle. And the anger never really came. It all subsided. Some of it probably had to do with just not drinking anymore at all. And the whole like build up to like, why doesn't God talk to me? Like you said earlier, like God, you heard God say this to you and that to you. And that had always been like my struggle was like, I don't hear that, like I felt like people who said God talks to them were borderline schizophrenics, uh, and I still don't hear voices or anything like that, man, but I can't like let anything go through my mind or my heart without now kind of running it through the
Mhm.
what's the bigger purpose here filter. Like there's this new filter on my thoughts. Like, is this in my control? Is this out of my control? Is another like is this God telling me what to do? And I think once you become open to that and
Mhm.
once you accept that and start to see it, now I see it everywhere, in every decision, like in everything that I'm doing. And I just keep going back to the whole like Amazing Grace,
Mhm.
the for once I was blind, but now I
I
see.
see.
And it's like, how was it so dark and so hidden for so long when it's so clear? I, you know,
Well, I don't think you're alone in that. I think there's a lot of people throughout the United States, especially those who we see there at Lodge of Hope. Many of them, it's their last chance to find hope. I've had so many stories of veterans whose lives were, they were ready to take their own life. And as you know, suicide rate is just through the roof with veterans and even first responders. And when they come to Lodge of Hope, we recognize that that's a place where they're at in their lives, and we provide a program to help them find that peace, to help them find that hope. And we have seen many, many lives changed for the good. And, I could write a book on the
You
lives that have
should
been
write a
changed.
book, man. You should write the book.
Need to
And
find
that's
a good
kinda how
one.
I was gonna finish my thought, was like, this is so profound for me, but, like, guiding people to that change, that's what you do for a living, like, quote, unquote, "a job." Like, it's so much more. It's a calling, it's a way of being, but, like, what an incredible way to spend your life, man. Like, you're saving lives and you're saving souls.
And it makes a difference in my life as much as it does theirs. I mean, when I can see somebody who's at the end of the rope and then see the hope that they found or the purpose, a lot of times they're over there, they've got special skill sets, they've been trained, they're good at what they do. They come back, their spouse has been running the home, and they come in at a time where everything is normal and not chaotic. And then they find themselves dealing with PTSD and it just the lack of, in their minds, self-worth or purpose. And, once they realize that your purpose and your calling isn't necessarily tied to what you do, it it's basically, you know, who you are and the purpose that God created you for. And I see all these guys who I can think of one in particular who was at the lodge last year, and we have an event called Veterans Men's Encounter. We'll have about 50 veterans at a time at these retreats. And day one, he was angry at God. He was angry at his situation, lost a spouse, all kinds of things. And by day three, his whole countenance had changed. He got baptized there in the water. We've got a beach there at Lodge of Hope. He was one of 51 been baptized there at the Lodge Lake. Uh, and I told him on day three, I'm like, man, you look like a totally different person. Just your face, the way you hold yourself. And he goes, that's because I am a totally different person. He said, I let go of so much pain and anger and all that he said, I feel like I weigh 50 pounds less. And uh, he's from the Kansas City area. Great guy. He came and spoke at an event that we had recently and just shared his story. And he told me personally, he said, one day you're going to hear my testimony. And he ended up sending me a video copy that him and his wife had sit down and he videoed. But he talked about how that event, he had already planned his own suicide, and that was his last hope. And so now he is walking in a newfound hope. He loves going around and sharing with other veterans. And, uh, you know, I hope he's doing good after the Detroit Lions loss. He's a season ticket holder and he wasn't too happy about that.
Oh,
But
no, so I shouldn't rub Ben Johnson in anymore, like,
no, if he listens to this, he's a great guy. And he's just one of thousands whose lives have been changed over
yeah.
the 20 years.
So for you, like, you were very deep in a relationship with God when you went through your divorce already. Like, so many people, like, what would you say to the person who questions, like, well, like, let's just use me for an example. Like, your house gets burned down, you get divorced, like, everything finally goes wrong, and that's when you find God. Like that, like, how come you weren't looking for God when everything was going so well? Like, how come people find God in, like, their darkest, lowest moment, or when they're in jail, or right after a divorce, and people are like, like, that's not real. You're just throwing yourself into something because something else went wrong. You're trying it out. What would you say to those people?
Well, one, first I'd tell them, they're not wrong for feeling like that. I mean, that's pretty common. I think about whenever you're going through something that you don't understand, you got to have somebody to lash out at. There's two ways people handle that. A lot of times they become angry at God. In my situation, he was the only thing I had left to hang on to. I mean, I thought I was going to lose my kids. I thought, the woman who I pledged the rest of my life to was, uh, no longer there. And I thought, what else do I have to hang on to? And my mom, who has a lot of wisdom, she said, you can either become bitter or you can become better. And I chose to become better. Um, I chose to think about how my kids would see me in the future. Because a lot of times when you go through a divorce, you go through a trauma in life, how you respond to it is what makes you who you are. And your kids are always watching, and I had 3 sons and 2 adopted daughters, one from Taiwan, one from South Korea. And the boys were watching. They wanted somebody that they could look up to during one of the toughest times of their lives. And I knew that, if I wasn't strong for them, then they might not grow up to be the kind of men that I want them to be. And I think the way that I handled it, and I have a good relationship with my ex-wife, and we co-parent our kids. They've only got one in the home anymore, and the rest are in college. But my kids have told me, they said, Dad, the way that you handled things is what allowed us to be able to do so well. And all my kids are doing good. My daughter was the head recruiter at Liberty University. She's married to a man that just got his physician's assistant degree, um, working in the medical field. And my 2 sons work at UPS in Louisville, Kentucky. And then I've got a son here in Webb City who's a miracle himself. He was almost killed a few years ago. And then my special needs daughter, can't remember if you met her. I think you did at the Aglow
Yeah.
banquet. But she's just a wonderful human being and wonderful daughter. And so, you can give up and ruin a lot of people's lives, including your own, when you give up, or you can turn to something that can bring hope and healing. And I don't fault anybody that goes through those times and doesn't remain strong. There's many times I've out thrown the towel. If it wasn't for people coming around me and holding my hands up whenever I couldn't hold them anymore, I wouldn't be where I am today. I would be lying to you if I told you that there wasn't times where I thought about taking my own life. I just felt like I can't deal with the pain anymore. And I'm glad I didn't. I wouldn't have got to impact a lot of lives. And I see that now looking back that, we're all created for a purpose. We need to be seeking what that is.
Man, those are some words of wisdom. You can become bitter or you can become better. That might just be the title of this podcast. That's pretty incredible.
Mhm.
And I mean, and talk too a little bit about not only your faith helping in your recovery, but also the veterans' recovery, but just the power of nature
Mhm.
and how that can help with so many issues and ailments as well.
Well, I've always had a love for the outdoors, and there's just something, as you guys know, about the outdoors is healing. It's therapeutic. Being out there in nature, it's quiet a lot of times, and you have time to think. And when these veterans come to an event that we do, Peterson Outdoors Ministries, whether it's at Lodge of Hope or all the places that we take them hunting across the United States, one thing is the same, and that's we're out in nature. We have a positive, impactful program and a message. And these guys are able to sometimes, for the first time, be able to be with other veterans in the hunting blind many times and just work through some of the things that they've experienced and find out that there's other guys that are in the exact same boat. And then the one thing we all have in common, whether you're a civilian or you're a veteran, is the love of the outdoors. And so you have that instant connection through the outdoors. We do the deer hunts, the turkey hunts, waterfowl, fishing trips, and just everything that you can imagine outdoors. We've been blessed with an amazing piece of property at Lodge of Hope for hunting, and it just gets better and better every year. But a lot of veterans have came to Lodge of Hope. Maybe they haven't hunted before, and they get out there in nature. They're with other people who care about them, and they get to kill a huge buck or get a nice turkey or whatever. But the experience in the outdoors definitely has a role in the healing process. That's for sure.
It's hard not to believe in a higher power without spending some time in the outdoors and just being able to soak it all in. It is really incredible, and I know it's helped me get through some tough times in my personal life too. Like anytime I'm really feeling down in the dumps or dealing with something that I think is bigger than myself, spending a little time wade fishing and getting out there, and it's definitely therapeutic.
There's no doubt about it. Tron, I still owe you a fishing trip.
You do.
So there's a list of like
He's
golden
such a
ticket
nice
winners.
guy. He was just, you
Yep.
do. Like, he wasn't
Yeah.
gonna bring it up, but
Well,
he hadn't forgotten.
I haven't forgotten either, man. Like there's a number of people out there that Tony Schmidt, we've
Mhm.
still got to do one with him. There's a winner from the NAS tournament that like got a hold of us and didn't get a hold of us. So some of it's not on us. Like we're too busy guys, but
If you
we'll
come
get these
to
trips
if you come
done
to
if we
Lodge of Hope
get it set up.
sometime, I'll treat you to a 9 or a 10-pound bass. How's that?
Well, you beat me to the punchline here, Tron. Like I was gonna say, like if you want a really good volunteer, a guy that you can count on to be a fishing guide, a fishing mentor, you give Shags some like pre-fishing, like figure the lake out permission, and I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a dedicated fishing guide volunteer. So
Well, the cool thing about the Lodge of Hope property, uh, it's got a 35-acre private lake that we own that's on the property that's about 20 foot deep towards one end, and it's full of crappie, big bass. It's got spoonbill in it. It's got 20 to 30 pound catfish, and we have veterans and first responders that come in from all the United States. We work a lot with like the LA County Sheriff's Department. In fact, these guys have been fighting the fires and stopping looters in LA. We have a lot of them every year at Lodge of Hope, and many of them have never got a chance to go fishing before. We get them out there; they get to catch some big bass, get to kind of learn about how to fish, and we also take them to like a equine therapy place, and they get to learn to rope and ride with some of the best ropers in the country and get to ride horses. And, it's a whole new experience for them. They come to the Midwest, they get out of LA and all the stuff that's going on there. And it's just a peaceful time for them to retreat. And, and like I said, just fishing, being on a boat, there's something therapeutic about that as well. But
I have a big announcement for boats. I'm super excited about this. It's just another blessing, At Retrieving Freedom, we have a beautiful private lake that we're sitting on, similar to Lodge of Hope. I think it's somewhere between like 35 and 40 acres, and we've got a really nice dock. It was donated to the organization when the building was built in 2019, and we're way out in the middle of nowhere, kind of like you are, with not a lot of recreational opportunities for our clients. Because when our clients come to train for their service dogs, they stay on site. We've got a number of suites, and Shags' fiance Savannah takes care of all those and makes them so nice for everybody with her team. So I started thinking, like, what can we do? I'm in the process of bidding out a nature trail that'll go around the property, so people can come out and spend time walking on a nature trail, taking one of our dogs for a walk. But man, I've really been in love with these mini pontoon boats for a long time. And there's a prosthetics company, Hanger Prosthetics, and we'll talk more about this when the boat comes. But we submitted a grant to them. It came back a partial award, not enough to get the boat that I wanted to get. I needed about $20,000 to get the boat that I wanted. I got 5, and I thought, well, okay, that's a good start. We'll find another partner. We'll maybe do a little crowdsourcing, bring in the rest of the funds. But I just took my shot, and I got a hold of the company out in Nebraska, Um, it's a smaller division of a bigger company, but they're called Pontinis, or they're like a mini pontoon boat. I can't wait to unveil it. And I talked to them, told them the story, sent them some literature, sent them a copy of the award from Hanger, and they covered the rest of the cost. So we're getting a beautiful 12-foot custom made mini pontoon boat, 4 seats, wheelchair accessible gate, bimini top, and getting it logoed with Retrieving Freedom around the sidewalls. So
Nice.
That's
these
fantastic.
autistic children and veterans that come stay with us will now have access to a mini pontoon boat. Clearly we'll have to put in. I'm the kind of guy that's like, here's the keys, but we're gonna
Mhm.
have to put in some processes, some safety procedures. Uh, they'll
Yeah.
probably let somebody else manage, like who. I'll get un-CEO'd for a little bit so they can make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. But what a blessing! What a blessing to reach out to these
For
people.
sure.
1, to get the grant. 2, to reach out to them, and for it to be on their heart to help us help others. I'm excited about it. So the Retrieving Freedom mini pontoon boat is in the works. So
Well done,
It's
dude.
exciting.
yeah, see, Shags will come down, hang out with us now at Retrieving
He'll
Freedom.
test it out.
Whenever there's fishing involved, Tron, it's like a kid with candy. Like
Uh-huh.
there's no having to figure out how to get them there. There just has to be fishing involved.
That's
I don't
right.
know what you're talking about. I'm not that into fishing.
That's the first thing I noticed is all the tackle behind
Can
Oh,
we get a shot of the trout? You're too big. You block your
oh yeah, I
trout.
might be able to see
you. Oh yeah.
the replicas from Scenic River Taxidermy. That is my Hall of Fame Lake Taneycomo 31 incher below, and then a 24 incher above it. So
I think you need to move your chair a little bit so the
you in
trout
my
are
chair.
in the frame. There you go. No, I mean in the future. You can sit back down.
I mean,
Uh
that's what's really important. So I guess I could just sit over here and be like, "Hey, guys, check that out. No big deal."
so yeah, while I was gone, Lauren went down to Scenic Rivers and picked up our deer from the 2023 season. And
Really?
like always, they look beautiful. We'll have to get a post made with the mounts, but always nice to come home from a guy's trip and your girlfriend has gone and picked your deer up at the taxidermist for you.
That's when you know you got to keep her.
Yeah, and it's a real keeper when she's getting hers too.
No,
Yeah,
well,
that's
So
Tron. Talk about that property a little bit, because I know your office is up in Joplin, but the setup you have is in northern Arkansas, is it not?
no. So this where Lodge of Hope is located is an hour north of Joplin, but we do
Oh,
events all over the state of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Tennessee, Canada. We do events all over the place, but the actual Lodge of Hope is located in between Joplin and Kansas City.
oh, okay. Yeah, I was confused on that one. I thought it was down in like northern Arkansas.
That's where we have our fishing tournament each year.
That's what it is. Yes, because that's what I was talking to Brandon, and even my fiance or Savannah, the forever fiance, at least until the end of this year. We finally set a date, but she's a veteran, and we were talking about bringing her down there for your guys' fishing tournament. So that's probably where the confusion was.
Yeah, bring that mini pontoon boat.
Savannah finally gave in and decided she'd go ahead and marry him.
Yeah,
Finally, yeah,
Finally, she gave in.
too much to offer.
that's true. When you catch fish like that behind me, it's hard to pass.
That's right.
So how did you stumble across the property? Was that something you always had in the family, or I'm just kind of curious how you got the Lodge of Hope?
Yeah. How much time do we have left? I can
I
tell
don't
you.
got no, I don't got enough time for that story.
Okay. Oh man, probably one of the biggest faith builders there was the story of Lodge of Hope. In fact, I've got a guy, he is a Navy admiral that's coming down in March to film a documentary on it. And basically, it was something that came about over several years. But back in 2007, I always kept a journal because I wanted to see all the things that were happening and document it. And so I've got about 15 years of daily journaling. I wasn't quite every day, but close to it. And I can go back and look at how everything progressed from meeting Brandon at the outdoor media conference and all those people in 2006. I can go back there and see the exact days of what I did and all that. But in 2007, um, we were taking individuals, disabilities, hunting. A lot of them were, we lived out in the middle of nowhere. So Lodge of Hope came into existence around 2017 as far as us getting the place. We discovered it at the very end of 2014. But up until that time, from 2006 to 2014 or so, we were just hunting it on our home place, which was 5 generations of family farm since the mid 1800s. We've lived on the same farm, and I thought, well, we've got, you know, several hundred acres. We'll take these guys hunting. But one thing I didn't realize is that just because you have a compassionate heart doesn't mean that you know everything that you need to know when it comes to helping people with disabilities. And we had people out there who we didn't realize, needed to have ramps to get into this or that, uh, places to stay, didn't have accessible showers, anything like that. And so there's a lot whenever you're dealing with individuals with disabilities, physical limitations that many people don't think of. And so over the years, I've learned a lot about that and how to accommodate those individuals, help them have a great time in the outdoors. But back then, we were out on our family farm. We were taking them hunting one or two at a time and realized that, we didn't have a place for people to stay that was suitable. A lot of times, if their family wanted to come with them, they couldn't because, the hotels and stuff were 50 minutes away at the south side of Joplin, and we didn't have any place. So Lodge of Hope in my journal back in 2007, I wrote, someday we're going to have a place called Lodge of Hope. It'll be a place for those with disabilities with a lake and handicap accessible lodge. We want a large enough place where the veterans and their families, those with disabilities, can come and stay, be ministered to together as a family. Whenever they get tired, they can go back to the lodge and they can hunt right there on the property. And that was the dream that was on my heart back in 2007. There were, about 10 years of this dream being on my heart daily, and we'd tell people about it and they're like, I don't know where this place is or where it's going to happen or whatever. I believe in you and I see what you guys are doing. But a lot of people, they wanted to see this place that I talked about called Lodge of Hope. And at that point, it was just a dream. I knew it was something that was out there. Many times a weekend, I would drive the roads and just be like, talking to God, like, am I getting close to where the property is that someday is going to be Lodge of Hope or, you know, just different things, you think is when there's a calling on your life and it's on your heart so that every single day of the week, no matter what's going on in your life through trauma, trial, whatever, that one dream is still there. And that was to have a place called Lodge of Hope that would be able to bring in hundreds of veterans and their families with severe disabilities. And so we looked at a lot of places. There were places throughout there were places all over, but none of them were like what Lodge of Hope has to offer. And whenever we found it in the end of 2014, whenever I saw it, a real estate agent with Whitetail Properties, who I had known growing up and who had been a part of our organization, he had found this place. It was everything that I had shared with people about Lodge of Hope. He had found this large lodge on around 200 acres up by Sheldon, Missouri, and with a big lake on it and all that. And everything that I had told him, whenever he saw it, he's like, this is the place. And he talked to his wife about it. And she said, well, you need to tell him that you think you found a place. And he was like, we're friends. I'm a real estate agent. I don't want him to go after it because I'm his friend and I'm an agent and all that. He said, I want him to go after it because it's the right place. And so anyway, over time, he finally told me about it and said, you got to come look at it. I went, um, I can't even explain just what it was like to be on that property. Um, there were literally thousands of ducks and geese landing in the lake. Whenever we took our board of directors there, we crested the hill on a cut cornfield and counted over 160 turkeys and over 40 some gobblers. Whenever we zoomed in on the picture, big long-bearded
Wow.
gobblers, there was about 160-inch 10-point buck out there with some does and several other bucks out in the field, and ducks were flying in. We had bald eagles flying over the lake, and I just like, oh my gosh, this has everything that I ever wrote about in my journals. It's got the wildlife that sustainable hunting can happen, throughout the seasons and not have to worry about, taking out too many or anything like that. And I just knew, and the lodge itself is 7,000 square foot lodge, but it was just a shell of the building. In other words, there was no rooms inside. It was just 2 stories with no rooms, no bathrooms, nothing. And so it was a clean slate. And we knew that, it would take a lot. Whenever we went into trying to purchase it, we sit down with the owner, and he's like, how much do you have? And we had done some capital campaigns on another piece of property where we raised a little bit of money, but it was a place up closer to Monette, Missouri. And it looked like the perfect place. And it just didn't work out. There's a whole story there that if we had time sometime, but basically that other place with the test, we had individuals with the finances that said, hey, we can finance it, but there's one thing that has to happen if we're to give you the money to buy this other lodge up by Monette. And I said, what's that? And they said, well, you have to take the faith part out of your program, because we're not giving the money to a faith-based program. If you want the money, we've got it. We'll give it to you, but you got to take Jesus Christ out of your message. And even though it was a dream coming true right before my eyes, I said, no, we're not going to compromise our faith. And basically, like I said, there is so much more to the story than what I'm sharing, but it wasn't but a year later that we had found the Lodge of Hope property, like I said, towards the end of 2014. And, we were sitting there with the landowner. This guy was incredible. He let us use the property for the hunts, even though we didn't own it at the time. He let us use it, and we told people about it and said, this is going to be Lodge of Hope someday. And just grateful for him for letting us use it. Well, finally in 2017, it was, basically time to make a decision. And we sat in a room with an empty room upstairs in the lodge with him, just me and 2 board members, myself. And he said, how much do you have raised? And we're like, 400,000. And he goes, you realize I am asking 1.5 million for this, right? And we're like, yeah, we understand that. And we knew we was a long ways from it. We hoped that he'd work with us. I've been praying about it all day. We're just honest with him. We said, we're going to continue to change veterans' lives. We believe that this is the place that we can use to do that. We only have 400,000 raised. We're not going to take out a loan for it. We're good for the money, but it's going to take us some time. And so one of our board members said to the landowner, would you sell it in 3 individual pieces, 3 separate phases? And our real estate agent friend of mine, he was like, could not believe that he asked that, because the guy was, he didn't think the guy would go for it. But the guy said, you know what? I'll do that. And so with the money that we had, we bought the Lodge of Hope that day, and we were able to buy it and the 4 acres around it. And then we had 2 years to come up with phase 2, which was 36 acres, and the other houses and stuff on the property. There was a guest house and a big barn and implement shed. And And then a church in Nashville, Missouri donated their church parsonage, which was where the pastor would stay. They donated it for $1. We remodeled it. So we was able to move a 4-bedroom house on there. So, um, but back to the lodge itself, and, we were able to pay for the lodge in those 3 phases. So he gave us 2 more years to come up with phase 2, came all the way down to the wire. Different people donated, and we were able to come up with it. We closed on phase 2 each time we closed on the property. So we have more and more of it. But he gave us from the very beginning free reign to bulldoze, to build stands, to do whatever we wanted to on that property. And people ask him why. And he said, because I know that they're going to own it someday and they're good for it. And so in February of 2023, we ended up finishing the last phase, and we were able to pay off. So basically, when he was first selling it, it was 100 acres, the lodge, and he was asking 1.5. We talked him down to 1.1, which was great on his part, and then 3 separate phases. And whenever we surveyed it at the end, he ended up donating 100 extra acres because, and then when we surveyed it, we thought it was 200 acres, but it turned out to be 214, and he donated the extra 14. So it's 214 acres. It's all paid for, every bit of it. We're groundbreaking on the new bunkhouse that'll hold another 16 to 20. February the 8th, we're having our groundbreaking for it. So a lot of incredible things going on. But all these buildings and everything we have there are just tools to be able to present the programs and the hunting and the faith and everything that we do. And, we are able to bring in about 500 or so veterans and first responders a year with family members and stuff. And this will allow us to increase what we do. And so that's a very short version of the story. There's some incredible stuff.
That's incredible. It's meant to be, man. That's amazing.
That's an incredible story, and I absolutely did not want to jump in and interrupt you, but we got some incredible breaking news while you were talking that the Buffalo Bills have preemptively been charged with roughing the passer.
Already?
Yeah.
How long have you been sitting on that joke?
I got a text. I got a text. It was a meme that came through. I've been laughing on the inside for a while.
So I'm all how can the veterans and first responders, like, how do they get involved? Is there a waiting list? Like, how can people come down there and enjoy the Lodge of Hope?
That's a great question. So there are certain waiting lists. Like I said, we have turkey hunts, we have deer hunts, waterfowl, predator hunts, our veterans encounter and our first responder men's encounter events. And then this year we'll be doing our first ever female veteran and first responder women's encounter retreat. If someone can't get in on a hunt, they can come to the veterans encounter, they can come to one of the other events. And a lot of times if they come to those other events and we get to know them, it moves them up pretty high on the list next time, because it's hard to sort through hundreds of names. And if you met somebody at like the veterans encounter, then there's a great chance they're going to be someone that goes on a hunt coming up. And so there's lots of opportunities. They go to the website, petersonoutdoors.org. They can fill out the event or contact info or veteran registration. They can volunteer if they want. A cool thing is a lot, if not most of the veterans that come to our events every year end up coming back as volunteers the next year or some capacity. And something that we've been proud of and thankful for is, out of all the veterans, first responders, and volunteers and people who came through our program, there's been over 30 organizations started nationwide from veterans and individuals to help veterans, from people who have came to our event. They've seen the program, they took that model back, and they're making a difference in lives all over the country. And so a lot of times it gives the veterans a feeling of, hey, I would like to do this in my home state. And a lot of times we have a suicidal veteran that calls us. Like we had one in Waco, Texas, he was about ready to take his life. He was barricaded in a house. We got a phone call and they said, "Hey, can you help this individual? We think we've got a half an hour or so." Immediately, I was able to think of my veterans that are located all across the United States, specifically ones that were in the Waco, Texas area. I gave a guy a call, said, "Hey, you got a fellow brother that's he's barricaded himself in a home. He's drinking himself to death, wants to commit suicide by cop. And if somebody doesn't help him in the next 30 minutes, we're going to lose him." And so he was close enough. He was able to go there with some military buddies, talk to the guy, get him some help and into a 72-hour program. And that's what happens a lot of times. These guys go back to their state and then they are resources for us in the future. Whenever veterans in their area need help, we can call on them. So it's kind of like the spider web effect. A lot of lives are impacted and continue to be impacted through that.
Do any of your veterans bring service dogs with them? Because it
Yes.
sounds like, Tron, we've got a real opportunity to take our personal friendship to a
Yes,
professional level, and
we do.
your veterans could certainly benefit also from what we're doing.
Yes, I agree 100%. I think I've got 3 or 4 veterans that have started service dog organizations and stuff that are local. But whenever you told me that that's what you do too, I was like, we need to get you involved. We need to hear more because not every organization and stuff that's out there is always a good fit. And so having several in our pocket as far as being able to reach out to uh, that's a plus. And so just
Well,
knowing that you do that, that's a great opportunity.
I'm sure every one of those people that started those organizations is doing it for all the right intentions, but there are different levels of
Yeah.
service dog organizations, and
Mhm.
we're at the top. Retrieving Freedom is ADI accredited, which is Assistance Dogs International. Our dogs, they'll have $50,000 worth of value over 2 years of training
Mhm.
by the time they go out, able to perform 28 different tasks and do it flawlessly. So the dogs that we actually career change, the ones that don't make it, are still the most unbelievable dogs you can imagine. Shags has one of them, Duke,
They're
and
they're pretty impressive.
so
Well,
we give our dogs away 100% for free. Like you, we have a lodge. I mean, it's a it's a big building that has a training facility. It has a residence wing with 4 very nice suites. We're soon to have a pontoon boat if that's not enough to get you to want to come up. But any of the veterans that you feel are in need, please, like, let's talk, send them our
yeah,
way, get them on our radar, and maybe they'll be back down at the Lodge of Hope duck hunting with their buddy. We've had some veterans turn their service dogs into duck dogs. So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
this is a testimony to you. I wanted to share as well, but anything I've ever seen you put your hand to, you do well at, whether you see that or not. Um, but anything I've seen you manage or be a part of, you do a great job. And so I know just by knowing you that you're Retrieving Freedom is a top of the line service dog program. And, look forward to being able to bless some veterans through working with you.
That'd be amazing, man. You should. I know I owe you a trip down there, so I'll come down there, but you need to come up here too
Yeah.
and see what we're doing. And we need to do that fishing trip. I would love to see Lynn Ragsdale again as well. He's a mutual friend, and
Hmm.
um,
Get
just
Lynn
been
on
a
the boat
very,
with you.
yeah, just a remarkable man that left a big mark on me early in life.
Well, he's our mayor and he does a great job.
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah, that's funny. Mayor Lynn.
Mayor Ragsdale, but he
of,
was,
of like the greatest football city in the state of Missouri, right? I mean,
yeah,
Webb City, that's what you're known for. You guys
yeah.
kill it every year.
Webb City and Lamar. Webb City's had 15 state championships. And I think Lamar's right around 13. Somebody that hears this from Lamar will probably correct me on that. Yeah, this
Probably has a
is,
lot to do with the mayor.
yeah, this is a good area for football. That's for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, speaking of football, we're over our time limit and we got a game. I'm very surprised you two are going against Jesus' team. I refuse to do that. I will not. So Notre
Oh,
Dame all the way.
Josh Lane already texted me going, "Who are you rooting for?" And I go, "I'm boycotting it." And he goes, "I figured you'd say something stupid
You're
like that."
boycotting. Tron's hoping
I,
for a tie, and I'm Notre Dame all the way. So
I'll root for the underdog, Brandon.
thank you, Tron. Thank you.
All right. Well, we can't let you get out of here without our mystery bait bucket. See, it's an actual old school bait bucket we got from the Midway Antique Mall, where anyone can submit a question. Very rarely does it have anything to do with the outdoors. So if you want to ask, you can leave it in the YouTube comments. You can also send us a message on Facebook or Instagram at Driftwood Outdoors, or an email, info@driftwoodoutdoors.com. This question, so I'll read the question, who it's from, then we'll all go around and answer it. This comes from Tim Kober. If you could instantly become an expert in any skill, what would it be?
Oh, the guitar. I've had a guitar sitting in front of me since I got one on my 18th birthday.
You've been talking about that guitar for as
I
long
have
as I've
tried.
known you.
Well, the original one went up in the cabin,
Yeah,
so I got a replacement one. Our good friend Adam Voigt took me to who's a rock star guitar player for
he's a
real.
musician.
Like and just I guess I don't know a ton of guitar players, but he's in my opinion a really good one. And he took me to his friend in Jeff City and had it all redone and new strings and tuned and okay, this is it. I'm gonna do it. I think the last time I picked it up was, I moved it to put the Christmas tree up, I think. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I just want to. If I could just play one song, I would be happy.
I think you could do that.
I know my fingers. I don't
Please don't move. Huh?
have that whatever that is that makes people just
Rhythm?
go like I can do this, but I can't do this.
I just bought my daughter electric guitar for Christmas, and she's wanting to learn the '80s rock ballads. I mean, she
Mm.
is studying everything she can, and but yeah, that's probably a skill that I wish I had, was the ability to do anything musically, and I'm musically illiterate. Can't sing, can't play an instrument, but some of my kids can, and if I had that skill, I'd be pretty happy about that.
Well, now that we're doing this video deal with our podcast, if I could just pick up a skill and be a master at it, it'd be video editing, because it is true. Trying to teach an old dog a new trick
Mhm.
is third. This is our third one, and I'm getting a little bit better. But man, if I could just snap my fingers and be some master video editor, that would be a dream come true. Because man, I feel like an okay boomer trying to like learn this new technology and going, what do I have to do again? What does that do? What? And I'm watching YouTube videos and they're just as confusing as the editing software, but we'll eventually get there. Just going to use a lot of AI.
So we just need we need everybody to send Shags words of encouragement. If ever there's been a moment where you felt like I should tell Shags, he's doing a good job. Just we've had a couple really nice ones, but send the big guy some words of encouragement. I've been pushing for us to shift this way for a while, and we finally figured out. It's the best way for us to be able to get guests like Tron on, like with
Well, we've been
Tron's
talking about
schedule.
trying to Tron on for 5 years. For as
I
long as
know.
we've been doing this, he's been on the
Yeah,
top
he's
of our.
been like and I'm glad we waited. I truly, again, as I said, I see God in everything, and I don't think I was ready to have Tron on. Like now's the time, and here we are. So let's continue to make it better and keep supporting us. Tell Shags he's doing a good job.
Shags, you're doing a good job.
Oh, thank
Thanks,
you.
Tron.
Appreciate that. So, a final thought, the final cast of the pod.
I just as I said in the beginning, Tron, like the work that you do, the way that you live your life and carry yourself, and I know you went through some hard times. We talked about that, and um, I'm just really glad that you're in my life and somebody when you don't even know it, but like I think about you, like what would Tron do in this situation, or how would Tron think about this, and so you've made a huge impact on me probably without realizing as much as you have, and um I'm just appreciative of it, man. So thank you. Thank you for all the people you've so selflessly given yourself to. It's amazing.
I appreciate the opportunity to be on here, and would love to be on here again sometime, but just reconnecting with you has been great. A lot of times we get busy, see each other maybe at an outdoor media conference or something like that every once in a while, but it's good to actually spend some time talking and kind of getting caught up. So appreciate it. Appreciate you and Shags. Appreciate everything that you do as well.
Well, we'll
Well, I'm
get that
glad there's
fishing trip set up and spend some time.
Yeah, and I'm glad there's people like you out there doing the work you're doing, man. You're making the world a better place, and we certainly appreciate it here, personally, professionally, and keep up the good work, man. And you're always welcome on this podcast. Anytime you got something going on, you let us know. We'll make time to get you back on.
All right. Appreciate it.
All right, Brandon, you ready for a gear review?
I am, man.
Gear review coming up now. Brandon, into the podcast, the beginning of a gear review. What are you reviewing for us today?
Well, this is a very direct pitch to one person in particular, so I hope they're listening and they pay attention. But I'm going to review the Rode Pod mic and the nice stand that it's on. So anybody out there that is doing any podcasting, maybe some video work behind a desk, this microphone is super nice. Like when it's on the arm here, you don't have to hold it in your hand and like keep it up to your face and like kind of move it away from your face and
I feel like
over
a
from your
stand-up.
face.
Stand up. I was a stand up comedian. I like holding the
Oh,
mic.
not every. How do you know I'm talking to you, man? Not
Oh,
everything's
because you're
about you.
staring right at me, Tron. He knows what he's doing.
So this microphone is about $100, and the arm maybe another like 60. So, just in case somebody wanted to get one, we have the money. So, I highly recommend it. The Rode Pod mic and Pod mic stand.
We're getting there. I got the webcam. I got the fancy light. I'm looking much better. I'm in HD now. I'm not as green. Adam sent us both a text. I don't know if you saw that going, I love the new format, but Shags, maybe you should invest in a new webcam. It's like, cut me some slack, bro. It was 1 week. And
God, he didn't watch episode 2.
Well, it comes
Clearly.
out, will come out tomorrow. We're
Oh,
recording
that's
this.
why.
It comes out tomorrow. But
Okay. There you go.
regardless, don't worry, Adam. I'm getting new stuff. I don't like holding onto the microphone. It reminds me of the old being on stage days, but we'll eventually get there with the fancy arm. And for my gear review, Brandon, you and I talked about this off air, how I'm no longer fly curious. I'm full blown fly. I'm just a fly fisherman now. And all my stuff before was like beginner things. Just say like the Chevy celebrity of fly fishing. And last year we splurged and gave ourselves a budget at the Conservation Federation of Missouri's banquet. And they had a very fancy, hardy, ultralight 5-weight with the ultra disc reel. And now I'm not doing Chevy celebrity stuff anymore. This is like the Mercedes Benz of fly fishing. It is so smooth. I'm in love with the setup. The drag release on this disc is absolutely incredible. I can't fly fish with anything else now. I've spoiled myself on high-end fly fishing gear. So just exactly what I need in my life now, something that's even more expensive to to do. But man, the hardy English ultra disc fly reel is legit. It's not cheap, but if you got the money to spend, I would highly suggest it because it has changed my fly game 100%.
We'll see you down the trail.